hey, real estate is a game and there's serious money to be made in it. When I walk through a property, I'm looking for things that the ordinary buyer is not looking for. I'm looking for the players in the game, the realtor, the seller themselves, the investors, the mortgage holders. Each one of these separate players can give me nothing down techniques. And therefore, let's talk about the seller who is a player in the game and the 7 nothing down techniques that you can use with the seller's circumstances. Yeah, so 7 nothing down techniques through your real estate seller. Remember, we're trying to think outside the box, and your real estate agent, they want to think inside the box. If you have a highly motivated seller, they're willing to go outside the box with you. So these 7 techniques might show you ways that you've never thought of before. So real estate agents, they're some of the least creative people on the planet. Now, I was a real estate agent at one time, so I'm not speaking out of school here. They want all cash from a strong buyer. What happens if you don't have lots of cash and you're not a strong buyer? Well, it's going to help you if you can visit with the seller, and the agent is not going to like that. When you buy real estate with nothing down techniques, don't bother with the listing agent. They act as a gatekeeper, pushing you towards traditional buying methods. Instead, make sure to talk directly to the seller, as there are 9 areas of flexibility that they can offer you. And this is hard to do, because the agent is going to resist that. And yet, if they're a highly motivated seller, you're going to be more successful if you can visit with them face to face. Okay, so what if the realtor says, nope, you're not talking to that seller? Then write it in the contract. This contract is subject to the buyer being present when the offer is presented to the seller. Therefore, you now make it obligatory for you to be there. Now, there's a lot more to talk about when it comes with dealing with real estate agents. So, click on the link down below and subscribe to this channel so you can learn a lot more about how to succeed at this game. Number 1, the ultimate paper out. And this is what people think when they think of nothing down. That means the buyer comes up with absolutely nothing. The seller receives absolutely nothing. That means they receive paper. That means a mortgage from you with no down payment at all. It's extremely rare. Maybe 1 in 1,000 times they're going to do this. But it is one of the techniques. There are other techniques where you combine this with other things for you to be able to get in with nothing down. But every once in a while, this one does happen. Okay, number 2 is the blanket mortgage. Sometimes when you come to a seller, they're willing to take nothing down, but they don't trust you. And they say, who are you? Do you have any other assets that can make me feel comfortable that you'll be able to make the monthly payments you say you're going to make to me? And you say, well, I do have another property. Maybe it's a single family home that you own as an investment. And you say, I'll tell you what, let's put a blanket mortgage on both properties. And for the next year, as I make my monthly payments to you every single month, regularly on time, then you have double security. But after a year, if I've made my payments on time, then we'll remove the mortgage from my other house. Blanket mortgages just makes the seller feel more comfortable that you're legitimate. Life insurance policy. Why would you even suggest that? Well, sometimes the seller is nervous of what happens to you if you don't make the monthly payments that you say you're going to make. So by offering a very inexpensive technique, you can say to that seller, tell you what, I know you might be a little concerned, so I'll get a life insurance policy on my life. And if I happen to die, then it'll pay off the mortgage that I owe to you. It's very inexpensive to do that. And at the same time, it lowers the seller's fear. So sometimes that technique works. Number 4, raise the price, lower the terms. That's happening a lot these days since everybody is competing for every single property and they're bidding the prices up. When a property is not so exciting, sometimes you'll say to a seller, I'd like to offer you your price, but it's high. It's too high. However, I'm willing to give you your price, maybe a little bit higher than your price, if you'll lower the down payment, lower the interest rate, make it easier for me to qualify. Maybe even you carry the mortgage so I don't have to go get a big fancy loan from a bank. Therefore, this is just a way to negotiate with the seller. Give them a little bit more, but you get a little bit more for yourself. Does that make sense? Okay, so you've probably heard of this challenge that I did. Send me to any city, take away my wallet, give me a $100 bill, and in 72 hours, I buy an excellent piece of real estate using none of my own money. Well, I went to San Francisco and they took away my wallet. And the first property that I bought, I used this technique. You see, the seller, they want their down payment as quickly as possible. And so you might say to them, listen, I'm not going to give you a down payment now. I'm going to make you monthly payments now. But in 3 years from now, I'll balloon the mortgage. That means I'll pay it all off to you. Therefore, you don't have to wait longer than 3 years in order to get all of your money. That's called a balloon. You got to be careful with balloons, though, because sometimes they can blow up on you. You ought to make sure they're long enough out so you have time enough to fix that property up and sell it to somebody else. But balloons are very powerful. So suppose you have good income, but you haven't been very good at saving that down payment, have you? But you say to yourself, well, I guess I'll just save my down payment for the next 2 years. But why do that when you can maybe find a seller who's more flexible who would take high monthly down payments? In other words, rather than giving them $30,000 right now, why don't you say, well, I'll give you $1,500 a month until the $30,000 is paid. So if it's a short period of time, this looks good to a certain kind of seller, and therefore you can give them high monthly down payments, and that can solve your down payment problem. Powerful technique, this one. Now, this one. Yeah, it's really creative. That's deferring the down payment with no mortgage payment. Suppose the seller owns this 6-unit apartment building. It's free and clear. They have no mortgage on it. Maybe they inherited it from their grandparents and they don't want it and they don't really know what to do with it. They want to get rid of it, really. And so you offer a creative solution. You say to them, listen, I'll give you even more than what you want for your property, but there'll be no mortgage payments to you for the next 6 months. Now, they might say, well, that's very rare. I mean, why would anybody do that? And so you say, I'm going to give you a little higher interest rate, but no mortgage payments to you. So during the next 6 months before the first mortgage payment comes due to you, you take the cash flow from the tenants and you use it to fix up the property. You use it to build up for a down payment that you'll give to the seller 6 months from now. This is extremely rare. I mean, it's not going to happen very often. The reason I'm teaching you these kinds of techniques is to teach you to think outside the box. Because realtors never think of this one. They can't even imagine that a seller would take a deal like that, but they've never been a highly motivated seller. And a highly motivated seller, yeah, often they'll take a deal like this just to get rid of that property. Okay, we've just talked about 7 creative, nothing down techniques for you to get involved in this real estate game. You want to go deeper? More techniques in this book. When you read this book, it'll show how you think about a creative real estate investor. Click on the link down below, order this free book. I guarantee you're going to learn some things you never thought of before. Subscribe to this channel. You're going to learn so much more. There's so much more to learn. And in addition to that, watch the next video because that takes you to the next step.